Hi, I'm Matt. I'm a guitar player, music producer, and worship director here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've done a couple of videos about the HX Stomp already, but the actual reason that I bought one was to replace my acoustic pedalboard. I'm really happy with it for that purpose. Now that I have it, I'm starting to expand and use it for other stuff, but this was like the reason I could justify getting one. I had previously had a whole acoustic pedalboard. I have a video on it, but there were, super high quality reverbs and delays and a compressor, a DI with EQ control, and for a while I had a whole separate EQ. Finally, I was like, you know what? If I sold off all of this stuff, I'll bet I could flip it into just an HX Stomp and do all that stuff with using blocks inside the Stomp. So there's two different ways to approach getting a good sound out of an acoustic guitar live, and I'll probably do a preset for each. What I'm doing right now is actually using an acoustic IR, which, if you're not familiar, it stands for impulse response, and they're maybe a little bit better known in the amp modeling world, but you can also get an impulse response of different acoustic guitars. And the idea is someone records the way that like a particular acoustic guitar reacts in a space, and then you can download that wave file and kind of apply it to yours. It works better the more similar their guitar is to your guitar. I lucked out and found Worship Tutorials has a Taylor 414 IR. This isn't Eastman, but for all intents and purposes, it's the same thing as a 414 in terms of what body style and wood and everything it's using. So I'm using that and I'm really happy with it. But that did cost money, so I can't share it at the end of this video. What I may also attempt is using a free one off the internet, and then I can make that preset shareable. And if that works out, I'll post it in the description of this video so that you can download it. Basically, I'm plugging my acoustic guitar out through its, piezo pickup into my pedal board. The same pedal board I use for electric, but I've turned everything off. It's just basically going into the HX Stomp. And I'm going to headphone up because for the purposes of this video, I'm only concerned with how my guitar sounds through the pickup. I don't really want to get distracted by how it sounds in the room right now, which is lovely. So if you've ever run sound at like an acoustic gig or been around the church world or played open mics, you know this sound. This is like the piezo raw acoustic pickup sound. I've done multiple videos about trying to get rid of this noise and make it sound a little more natural. This is our starting point. It's terrible. Let's fix it. Let's see. First thing, I'm going to go ahead and implement the IR. So you can hear the difference that Worship Tutorials 414 IR is making. Here's without it again. Raw guitar sound with the IR. So by itself, that would be reason enough to be doing this as compared to plugging in straight. Because that sounds amazing, but there's still more we can do with this. So I'm going to drop in a compressor. The issue with guitar pedal compressors on an acoustic is you can usually hear them really squashing it. So what I've done here is actually applied the LA Studio comp from the HX Stomp, which is not a pedal compressor model. It's based on like a studio rack compressor. So what I'm trying to do here is less like a guitar pedal situation and more like what my studio recording chain would be if I was tracking an acoustic. There's LA Studio comp. I'm doing peak reduction at a 7, gain at 5.5. I didn't mess with emphasis or anything too much. So here's without the compressor. And here's with. What I'm trying to do in the studio with a compressor on acoustic is get the big loud strums and the in-between strums a little closer in volume. So I'm happy with that. I'm realizing as I'm looking at this, maybe the IR should be first, because if we're pretending this is actually our guitar sound, then everything else would come after it. And then I have a couple EQ blocks in here. Here's without it. So hopefully you can hear what that's doing is tiny adjustments here in the lows. Mainly I'm cutting some 1 and 2K on that because those are the frequencies that with a piezo pickup like really need to go. And even the IR that I'm using is not fully getting rid of that honky mid-range quality. So here's without the EQ. So that helps a lot. And then I have another EQ block here. So this is cutting some 800. 800 is a frequency I always try to watch on acoustic. It makes it sound boomy and cheap. I'm not doing anything with the highs. Tiny cut on the lows. So here's without that other EQ block. So the frequency I'm mainly concerned with here is this, if you can hear it. So it sounds better with a little less of that 800 hertz. So we've got IR doing most of the heavy lifting, compressor, EQ, EQ. And that's pretty much the acoustic sound that I'm after. Those are kind of the key blocks. Let me show you with all of that bypassed again. So here's our raw acoustic pickup sound. And then here's with all the stuff. And then I have some optional effects here just for fun. Put a chorus on there. And I think I will assign that to a foot switch. So I can turn it off. I wouldn't usually have that on. That's just there for fun occasionally. And then this is a volume block that I'm intending to use as like a solo boost. So I have that on one of my foot switches. And the idea is that if I don't do a lot of like acoustic solos, but if I needed to, I could jump up about 6 dB just by pressing that. And then I did throw a delay here on the end. This is transistor tape. And I've got my tap on the HX Stomp, so. Delay on an acoustic is not something I would do very often, but we've got the blocks, so I'm going to go ahead and set it up and put it on a foot switch. So really, I could do without these entirely. They're just sort of there because I had room for them, and why not? So this is my preferred like acoustic preset that I use when I play live. But in the interest of making something shareable, let's try a different IR here. So if you don't have the worship tutorials one, although I recommend the worship tutorials one, it's great. What I did was, if you Google free acoustic IRs, there's this site called acousticir.free.fr or whatever. And you can select what your guitar is. Mine's an Eastman Grand Auditorium. Search that. And they actually have, this is my exact guitar, AC422CE. So I just grabbed that. Hello. And let's try dropping that in there. Okay, that sounds terrible. So that's not bad. I don't like it as much as the worship tutorials one, but it's certainly better than no IR at all. So I think what I'll do is I'll post a version of this preset and you can put whatever IR best suits your acoustic on that first slot, maybe off of that free IR site. Maybe if you have something floating around, you'll need to drop that in, but all the other blocks will be ready to go for you. Now, I mentioned at the beginning that there's another approach to getting this to sound good live, and that's not bothering with an IR and just EQing much more heavily. So let's try an alternate preset where I don't lean on an IR and we just try to get this sounding as good as we can. Okay, so blank preset again. There's nothing, there's no blocks turned on right now. So here's the compressor again. Not helping with the pickup sound at all, but it's compressing well. So what I had to do on this EQ-based preset is EQ out the 1K a lot harder. If you'll remember on the IR preset, I'm still removing a decibel or two of 1K. On here, I'm removing 9 decibels of it, 5 dB of 500 and 7 dB of 2K and some 4K. So like serious scooping of this bad mid-range here. So here's without the EQ. So that's a lot better. I think that removes a lot of that quackiness. Doesn't sound like a mic'd guitar or like a guitar in real life yet, but let's see what else I did here. Okay, so this is that 800 scoop again. And because we've removed so much of the EQ in the middle, I'm going to raise the volume. So that's better. This would be comparable to what I was doing before I got the Stomp, which is using an LR Baggs Para-DI to heavily EQ the bad frequencies. This sounds more or less like what I remember that sounding like. But now it's kind of brittle because I've removed a lot of the mids, so it's very treble-y. I wonder if the mic preamping here would warm this up some. So I'm going to go to preamp, mic, and do the studio tube pre. So without the mic pre. So I don't know if that's a psychosomatic effect because I want it to be warming it up, but I do think it's warming it up a bit. I wonder if we should lose some highs too. Oh, that's better. So I've cut out some 14K here. Here's without that. If you can hear that really crispy, sizzly, like high end that this has. Maybe a little more. Okay, so anyway, I do still think I prefer going the IR route, but if you didn't want to do that, this is probably the next best thing to do with the Stomp, which is just put a bunch of EQ blocks in a row and really like fine tune out those frequencies. So here is, with everything bypassed, raw guitar sound. And then here's with the stuff that I did. So that's a lot better. And this is more or less what I used to do, is just EQ the heck out of my guitar. So that's not a bad solution at all. And I am going to save this. But my preferred solution is this IR. So let me back and forth between those. Here's the acoustic, just heavily EQ'd. And here's the IR-based thing. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I will post both of these acoustic presets for download in the description of this video. If you grab the IR-based one, you'll need to go get an IR for it, but that actually might be for the best, because that means you can grab one that's better suited for your specific guitar instead of having the Eastman 422 one or something. So I'll leave that IR block on at the beginning, but you'll want to go to that, maybe that free acoustic IR site, maybe Worship Tutorials or someplace, and get one and drop it in there. Or you can grab the EQ-based one and just maybe fine-tune it for your own rig. I'm really happy with the Stomp as an acoustic solution. The freedom to do all of this EQing. I mean, on my bags, I had like 3 or 4 bands I could fine-tune. I could put as many of these EQ blocks as I want. The ability to do that and then have like compressor and stuff built in too. Even if you don't use any effects with it, this is an incredibly versatile acoustic rig solution. It feels a lot more like recording an acoustic in my studio and then putting plugins on it compared to kind of a basic EQ pedal or whatever. So hope that was helpful. And I'm going to keep exploring what acoustic pickup instruments I can make sound better using this unit. I was thinking I also have a mandolin patch that I'm really excited about, and I'd like to make one for my banjo. So that'll be a separate video that I'll link here when it's posted. Thanks for watching.